What's up guys, Matty here, mixandmastermysong.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at a new plugin from Baby Audio called Crystalline. This is what I like to call a forward-thinking plugin. It's not some emulation of a reverb from 40 years ago. It is a brand new reverb with new features that are helpful for modern production. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how the plugin works. I'm going to show you what it can do and how you can use it in your productions. Before we do get started, please make sure to like and subscribe if you find this video helpful. Let's go. All right guys, so here is the plugin Crystalline. We'll go through the different settings and then we can get into some listening examples. First is the reflections. And so firstly, you have your size, and that's, one thing I really like about this plugin is it's pretty self-explanatory and you can move quick. Now, that's one of the things I like and one of the things I mean by forward-thinking plugins. You can get to your idea fast and get moving. So first you have your size, goes from tiny to spacey. You know what that's going to sound like. Then you have this button called Sparkle. And what this does is adds high frequencies to the reverb reflections. And we'll listen to all this in a second. Lastly, in this section, you have your width, which makes it wider, or you can pull it all the way in to make the reverb just mono, which is pretty cool feature to have. The next section is depth. And first you have resolution, and that's going to set how complex the algorithm is going to be. I assume how much CPU is going to use too. And so you can go from pristine all the way to basic on that. Then you have your modulation, which adds a little bit of chorus and modulating to the reverb, which can make it sound a little more like the older reverbs, the 480s and the Lexicon stuff, and can make the reverb a little more exciting. Then you have this shimmer, which adds a longer decay time to the higher frequencies. And you can do this by frequencies, so you have 2 hertz, 2 kilohertz, 4 kilohertz, and 8 kilohertz, and then 2 times, 4 times, and 6 times. We'll play with all this in a second, I promise. When you move to the center section, this is probably my favorite part of it. This should be standard on every reverb from here on out. And this is another example of forward-thinking reverbs. You have your pre-delay, or what they call start time, and you can sync it. Thank you. Then you have your end time, which you don't see as much as you see as on the pre-delays, but the end time is you can sync too. So if you want a reverb that goes for 1 bar, you can make that happen with this. Below that, you have your wet dry knob, and another button that should be on every reverb, a wet lock. That's starting to happen more, but it's there. And then a ducker, which is a really good sounding ducker, and we'll check it out. So essentially, when the vocal comes in, it will duck the reverb sound and then pull it out when it comes off. Cool feature to have, and we'll check it out in the vocal example in a minute. Next section is the cleanup, and this is actually kind of interesting. They have some, at least one feature of the sides that I don't normally see on a reverb. So first you have your dampening. This is a low pass filter basically. Then you have the sides. So what this does is makes the sides mono from a frequency down. So you can go 9K, 95 kilohertz and below. The sides won't be reacting to the reverb, and that can be good when you're using reverb on like a low frequency instrument. And then finally, another cool feature is a gate. And lastly, the shape section has a tone section, which is kind of like a tilt EQ. Then you have this smoothing section, which I really like for vocals, that attenuates the sharp frequencies in the reverb. I assume that might have some sort of algorithm from the smooth plugin that they have. And then lastly, transients, which is actually pretty cool. I was like, transients, cool button, but this is actually pretty sick. You can emphasize the transients or the sustain of the reverb. So cool addition that I normally wouldn't have thought would be good is good. All right, so let's check this thing out on a snare, and we're just going to tweak this so you guys can kind of hear it in action. So start with like a tiny room, and then you can build it up to a spacey one. Let's just stick with medium for now. And then I'm going to bring the sparkle up so you guys can hear the emphasis of the high frequencies. Next is the width. And I like this width. Like sometimes you don't need a super high, super wide reverb. And sometimes it's cool just to have the reverb in the middle. Some old school vocal things or something like that. That's super helpful to have. Then you have your resolution. And you can hear the algorithm change a bit with that. Modulation. You hear the reverb start moving a bit with the modulation. And a snare is a cool instrument to really hear that shimmer on. You could hear at 2K, it was much stronger than when it was at 8K, where there's not a whole lot of information from the snare. So that's a cool feature to add. It works better on vocals, and we will get to that, I promise. I just feel like the snare is a really great way to actually hear this thing in action. Next is the start time or pre-delay. Let me just show you. This is so sick. You can put this up and have a quarter note pre-delay, hit the snare button. And the end note you can have so that it ends before the next reverb comes in. So this can be very helpful for cleaning up a reverb, something especially on a snare where you don't want it like trailing from, you know, a bar back. It just ends at the bar and then comes in and gets you that snare reverb and then gets out of the way. You got the wet and dry knob here and then the ducking. Let me just pull that up on the snare a bit so you guys can hear it. And you guys hear I hit the reverse right there too. It's kind of interesting. There's a reverse on there, which is great, and a freeze. So pretty cool features. Now onto the dampening. You got a high pass filter, and I'm just gonna go through these really quick to save some time. You guys don't have to sit here and listen to me with the snare drum forever. So both high pass and low pass filter, then the sides. And that sounds good. It cleans up the bottom end up quite a bit with that, just like bringing it to 443 Hertz. Then the gate. Always nice to have. And then the tone. You hear when we pulled that smoothing off, the transient of the snare came through quite a bit more. So that soothing is actually compressing down on our snare sound, which, you know, makes, you can change the sound of the snare with just that knob. So that's cool. And then lastly, the transient. That transient's really cool. It can really change the tone. And that's what I was saying earlier, that that's a pretty cool feature to have that I didn't think would be that cool. So good job. All right, let's move on to some vocals so you can hear this thing really in action. All right, so we got Crystaline set up on this vocal. This is a song by an artist I work with named Rhea. She's super talented. Make sure to check her out on all the streaming platforms. This song is called Venom. So let me just play this with and without it, and you guys can hear what it's doing, and then we'll mess with the different knobs as well. So it sounds really good. This is actually a preset. There's a ton of presets in here. There's the vocal mix of your dreams. Sound like a good preset to start with. But we can now sync this and say we want this reverb not to be in the way and you want that kind of dry sound with the pre-delay behind. We can put this to like a 16th note and check it out now. always like to do a shorter pre-delay for vocals because it doesn't sound too weird. You saw as we brought it out further, it turns into more of an effect. Let's check out the ducking now. So it pulls the reverb back a bit. Maybe it's not the best example for that. This thing's really super useful when you're doing a ballad or something, but sweet to have. We'll just play with a few more knobs, and I think that should be good. All right, guys, so that is Crystalline. I really dig this reverb because you can set it up really easily, or you can really dial in things and change the sound. And both of those options are done pretty easily and straightforward with this reverb. So I'm a fan of it because of that. Let me know what you guys think about the reverb in the comments below. You can check the reverb out in the link below as well. If you need your songs mixed and mastered, hit me up at mixandmastermysong.com. You can also find my courses and presets there too. Talk to you guys soon.